Okay, I found out I wasn't going to be introduced. My name is Arnold Bradshaw, and if you look at your program there, it says that my topic is credit cards for tennis success. It's about sports cards, which I carry with me wherever I go, especially on the tennis court. I plan to tell you 5 stories about that, and then I have 5 prizes over here for you to win cards. So you're going to have a chance to win something here at this session. Some of these cards are pretty valuable. First story, I'm going to cut the stories down to 3 instead of 5. My son was the head pro in Easton, Connecticut, and I worked for him. And I had this little girl that I taught every week, and she would win cards off me. And she won quite a few. And she was 11 years old, and by the end of the summer she had won quite a few, and we were walking up to the office, and she said to me, she said, "Mr. Arnold, give me your Blake. I'll give it to Betty." I said, "Emily, what are you talking about?" She said, "Well, after I leave you, I go to the indoor club in Trumbull, Connecticut. Betty Blake works there. That's James Blake's mom. I'll get your card signed for you." And so I gave her my James Blake card, and she got it signed for me from Betty Blake, James Blake's mom. At the same club, we had a boy that was a holy terror, which you'd probably run into too. And even the people down at the pool, his first name was Harrison, and the people down at the pool thought his name was Harrison No, because his mom was always saying, "Harrison No, Harrison No." And he was just a holy terror, so he came to my clinic, and he was Harrison No there too. But then one day, when we were picking up the tennis balls, he loaded up his racket full, and he brought it over to the cart, and I stopped everybody. I said, "Stop!" Oh. I said, "Everyone see what Harrison did there? He got all those tennis balls, and no one told him to do that. That was a random act of kindness. We call that a rack point, R-A-K, random act of kindness. And I'm going to give Harrison one of my random act of kindness cards. I keep those on the back of my little clip here." So I gave him a Cal Ripken Jr. And all of a sudden that boy's countenance changed. All of a sudden that boy's behavior changed out on the court. And when he came to class, his new name wasn't Harrison, it was Junior. And all of a sudden I had the best of all the students that you could ever want out there on the tennis court. He was very helpful to me, and was a wonderful young man after that. And then another card story, this will be the last one. Well, another one on the rack point though, where Ben and I work in Montgomery, Alabama now. We had a boy that ran out and picked up some tennis balls, and I gave him the same speech there on the RAK, the random act of kindness, and I gave him a card. After that, at the end of every clinic, he would run and pick up all the tennis balls outside the fence and everything and run and put them in the cart. He was just a fantastic young man. We had a grocery store in Montgomery called Earth Fair, and they had on their brochure, they said to write a story about different topics, and their topics this time was, "What is your favorite Olympic sport?" So I'll read to you what I wrote, and it involves cards. I wrote, "My favorite Olympic sport is tennis because I'm lucky enough to be a tennis teacher. Here are some pictures from our tennis camp last week. I'm in the white hat showing players from ages 4 to 16 some tennis cards that would be used as prizes when we went out to play our games. One of the cards of Fernando Gonzalez was of great interest because Gonzalez won an Olympic gold medal in 2004. So when we went out to play, the leader in the game would have to say, 'Fernando!' That's what he would say to try and win his Fernando card if they won a point. We were having too much fun. Tennis has to be, and this is how I wrapped it up, tennis has to be my favorite sport because I'm able to help these young people to learn a sport of a lifetime and also to dream of Olympic gold, because we're lucky to have our sport as an Olympic sport as well as being in so many other things like that. So there's 3 card stories that, and I could tell you hundreds of them, where tennis cards and sports cards that helped me to teach this game, wonderful game of tennis. Now here's some prizes for you. I'm going to ask 5 questions. This is on Mondays we play around the world. The kids win these, and I sign the back of them. She mats them up for me. So because some of you say, well, I don't have access to cards, so this is an idea for you. Just get your tennis magazine, put the pictures, and then write on the back the date and date it and sign it, and then that student has a little memento of their time with you on the course. So one of you can win this today, and this one's even nicer because it's the Bryan brothers, but if you win this one, it's also signed on the back by their dad. Wayne Bryan did a clinic with us in Montgomery, and so this one's signed. And you get a choice. If you get the first question, you can pick these out. Then there's 3 nice cards here for you. There's another James Blake. This one's not signed, but you get it. He's one of the best announcers on Tennis Channel. Here's an Anna Kournikova. So we have a lady card there. And there's a Cal Ripken Jr. Come on! You got some amazing things here. So if you get the first question right, then you just come up and make your pick. You don't have to pick, you can pick whichever one you want. First question. Denis Shapovalov, a young man from Canada, uses what kind of a racket? Raise your hand.
Who?
Don't shout out. Shapovalov, the young man from Canada, uses what kind of racket? Yes, sir. Alex is correct. Come on up and get your prize. All right. Now he gets a choice of those. It'll be interesting to see who goes first, what prize he picks. And second question, when Wayne Bryan came to that clinic with us in Montgomery, it's a huge college tournament. We're talking about announcers for Tennis Channel. One of the very best is Paul Annacone. Where did Paul Annacone play his college tennis? Raise your hand. Yes, sir?
UCLA?
No. Paul Annacone, college.
USC?
Behind me.
No, what is it?
Oh.
USC?
No, not USC. Paul Annacone, college.
Tennessee?
This is correct. Tennessee is correct. SEC school. Oh, there he goes.
He didn't tell me those ahead of time, did you?
No, I didn't have that time. Okay. Cal Ripken. Oh, he's gone with the Cal Ripken Jr. Okay. So let's turn it to the female side. Who's our current Australian Open women's champion? Sir?
Wozniacki.
Wozniacki is correct.
There we go.
So let's see what we have left here. Oh boy, the cards are going faster than the posters. All right. Let's go to current things coming up for us. The Davis Cup is winding down. There's 4 teams left. Spain is going to play France, and then U.S. has made it to the semifinals. Who are they going to play in that semifinal?
Croatia.
Croatia. All right, and one more question, and I'll be done. Oh, Anna Kournikova is still up there. In fact, I gave Lane an Anna Kournikova card the other day, so because he uses a lot of fitness things, and she was on the TV show The Biggest Loser. So all we have left is Dennis up there, but it's a great poster. Last question. Last American man to win the French Open, which is coming up. Last American man to win the French.
Jim Courier.
Not Jim, no. Oh, you gotta, don't shout out. Who said that, Agassi? All right, go on, go ahead. Who got the Agassi? All right, good up there. So remember, if you get a chance, I can tell you hundreds of stories about these cards, and I always carry them with me. to show the kids that, in fact, they try to win them off me. I'll just show you a couple of the ones we have to skew it toward Alabama. There's Bo Jackson. Everybody wants that Bo card. And then, amazing Alabama card. That's Michael Jordan playing in Birmingham baseball. You know, oh, you want that? But then this is probably my favorite of them all. This is Rafael Nadal when he's 16 years old. Yeah, it's an amazing card. They play me for those. I give them a 30-love lead and they try to win them off me, so they have a little bit of an incentive. All right. Thank you for your time.
Good morning.
Morning.
I thought for a minute I was going to get to talk about my favorite color, dark blue, before the spring came up there. So, hope everybody's doing well. My name's Todd Upchurch. I'm the immediate past president at USPTA Southern, and happy to be here this morning. Talking about plan to pivot. It's about making change in your business and in your life. And I just spent some good time with some good folks, and I told them I was going to totally change my presentation this morning. But basically, with the pivot, we sometimes feel like this in our business, right? Life too, but we feel like this in our business sometimes, and we hit roadblocks. We don't know where we want to go with it. So, what kind of direction that we want to go in? So, to take a pivot is basically making a change in strategy without changing the vision. And it's not always about desperation. Sometimes it's to look for different growth opportunities and to look for different revenue opportunities. And I'll talk about myself personally. I was at a top 20 platinum club, country club for 10 years. But the last couple of years there, I wasn't, I was making great money, working a whole lot, and had some job satisfaction, but wasn't seeing my family a whole lot, and just needed a change in what I want to do. I knew tennis was still the path for me, but I needed a different way to get there. So some of the things I'm going to talk to you about today are when I left that job in the company that we started called Serve It Up Tennis Academy, and kind of what we're doing since 2010 till today. So I've been in the business for 8 years, but making that pivot and being able to move through there. And this is so true. The only move that matters is your next one. And I say that to my tennis kids a lot too. How you react to what's happened next is more important than what just happened and what I do with it after that. So first of all, I'll talk about business a little bit. Now the difference between an iteration and a pivot. Some people will say like a pivot's going to be a pretty large change that's going to happen in your business or in your life. Now iteration is going to be something smaller. Making a change from charging $65 to $70 an hour, that's an iteration. Deciding that you're going to go from being a tennis pro to being a pickleball pro. I don't know if there is such a thing. But if to change one or the other, that would be a large pivot in your life. So we see the difference definitely between the two. So some of the famous pivots that we've had, large business-wise, would be some of the ones that we have up on the screen there. So Twitter used to be called Odeo. And when it first started, it was a network where you could find podcasts. Definitely not what it is today. But iTunes rose really quick, and they had to change their model. So they became what we know them as today as far as an information social media platform. PayPal used to be a company called Confirmity, and they used to do beam payments from one phone to the other until eBay came up. So they pivoted and became the reseller or the payment of choice for that reseller. Starbucks used to just sell espresso machines. And then they thought they'd get in there, well, this might be cool to have a coffee shop or two and change the experience. After the CEO traveled through Europe and saw that and wanted to come back to the States. And then lastly, YouTube. What was YouTube before it is what it is now? It's a dating site. People would upload videos of themselves to meet other people. And they saw how much people were interested in showing themselves on the videos, and so they stripped out that and then made it into what it is today as far as video service goes. So 7 segments in your business that you can pivot. And I also put up there, and what's the plan? And I use this plan sometimes as an acronym for the people that I have that are club members or especially club members. And what I say with that is the P is they are my power users. Right? They're going to be there. If the courts are wet or dry, they're going to show up. They're going to be the ones helping you squeegee court. They got to get their matches in. They got to get on court. And those are the ones that are going to pay your mortgage. Right? Those power users. The L stands for people that love the game. They're going to show up, but they're not there like the power users. They'll be there. They enjoy the game, and they love being out there. But you know, if the Wells Fargo tournament comes into town, they're going to go to that day instead of play their match. The A is just the average member that shows up, brings their kids out there once in a while, hits a few tennis balls. You might sell them a can of balls here and there. And then the N stands for you're never going to see them on a tennis court. And so, as far as segmenting and trying to make a living, you just kind of put those off to the side, and they'll come around in the future and become something different. So, but my 7 segments to pivot would be a customer. If you have a customer problem, you essentially have the same problem that you have now, but you're trying to solve a different problem with them, and solving that problem. You have to take some feedback from your customers to be able to see that. For us to serve it up, we started as I wanted to manage I wanted to manage neighborhood tennis clubs. Neighborhood tennis courts didn't have pros. So that's what I started with when I did that. Did that for a little while, and that was went okay, but then we saw a different segment that came up. My son was going into kindergarten. So imagine this, I just quit a really good job, and I got one of my first kid going into kindergarten. So I'm like, all right, I got to do something. So we started Serve It Up, and I got a flyer in the come home with his stuff, and they were offering golf at his school, and I'm like, why are we not offering tennis at his school? And that's kind of how we started, and now we do tennis at 20 different schools, and we're expanding through, trying to expand, but that was our little pivot there because we solved a problem, and we solved a different problem once we got into there, because what I saw was, as much as I wanted to think that tennis was a vehicle for some of these parents, because we were getting these kids right after school. The parents could leave them there. We took them for another hour, took them into a parking lot or to the gym. We taught them tennis. We took everything with us. We solved all these problems for the parents. And I wanted to think at the time it was because of tennis. And it was a little bit that they started there. But I was really solving the problem for the parents that they needed another hour. They needed another hour at the end of the day. They wanted to get their kids some exercise, and they could check those 2 boxes with what we were offering. And we were solving their problem by them not having to buy equipment, not having to pick their kid, take them somewhere else. We were showing up where they were and being able to take care of that. We solved the problem for the schools being responsible, taking care of everything that we needed to, so that they could look like they were offering more things to their students there.
Question, did y'all do primarily elementary and middle schools, or?
Elementary, no middle.
Okay.
Yeah, orange ball, red ball.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely no middle schools. But just moved into preschools. That's been great right there. 24 kids in one preschool. And 2 weeks ago, the 2 pros that were supposed to help me didn't show up. So I ran 24 kids by myself, and it was a blast. We had a good time. And the parents didn't even complain because we just ran. It was great. It was great. It's the longest, shortest 30 minutes of your week right there. So, market segment. This means that you take your existing product and you solve a similar problem for a different set of customers. So once we saw that this was working in one school, we expanded to other schools. And we're able to solve that problem for other folks there. Sometimes it's technology. When I first started this, I was sending home flyers and then taking in checks, and they would get checks to the office, and they would have to get those, and I would put those together and then have to do all that other stuff, and it was just a pain in the rear end. And so I spent 2 weekends working the entire weekend and built our first website so that I could take payments online. We used PayPal. Take everything online to make it easy, all assimilate the information. It was much easier for them. The office liked it because I was solving their problem because they were losing payments. That was my money, and then they were also, one of the schools was seeing all the money come in. They're like, oh, we need a piece of that. We want 25% of everything that's coming in. I'm like, well, we're going to be here 75% less then. And so we pulled out of there because it was, the margin at that time wasn't as good as it is now. So we solved that problem with the website. Product feature. You pay close attention to what the real customers are saying rather than what you think rather than what your projections are. With the country club, every October, I wrote a nice, pretty budget for the next year. And maybe that went, maybe it didn't go. I can draw some really sweet charts about how much money I'm going to make next year, but the projections are one thing, and what really is going on is the other, and you've got to pay attention to those market segments, so you've really got to follow your numbers so you know how to make those changes in there. Looking for other revenue models. What I started doing on some of the schools was that the kids wanted to practice after they left school. So the third session, we did 5 sessions a year. So the third 6-week session, I offered them, along with their class, offered them that they could buy a racket all for one price. And I ordered the right size racket, and I took it to them to the school and gave it to them and had their name on it. And they came in the bags. We used Wilson rackets, and we put a couple extra red balls or orange balls pin in their Asian bag, give it to them. It's like Christmas in September. It was awesome. But we were solving that problem because I needed them to practice at home. And then also out of that, a revenue model, I was managing a club at the same time. So I created my own funnel to bring those kids that wanted more than what I could give them in a bus parking lot or in a school gymnasium. I could take them to an actual tennis court and turn them into players and team players and other things. So we had that revenue model there that we added. Product versus services. Bundling everything together, make sure that you've got both sides of that coin. And then major competitor. Who is my major competitor in the schools? In Charlotte and most of the country, it's soccer shots, not tennis. I compete with nobody else is crazy enough to go in there and haul all this equipment in the back of their car and drop it off and set up nets and take all the balls in there. I don't have competitors in that space. I have competitors with soccer shots, chess club, art clubs. That's who I compete with. So I got to make sure my product is more conducive to the students. So we make sure we've got other things in there that we can do. And I'll say, don't be stubborn or blind when you need a much-needed pivot. Listen to the customers, and you got to embrace the praise that you get and the criticism equally. You can't just be blind to what needs to change. All right, 7 ways that you can kickstart some growth. And I'll cut through these because I want to make sure I get to the end. This is all the business stuff, and I'll go through these a little quicker here. Strip down the solution to get to the key feature. Keep it simple, right? Add the grabber feature to make your solution stand out. My superpower in tennis is that I love teaching 4 and 5-year-olds. Love it. 3-year-olds even better. You give me the player that wants to go play D1, I'll find another pro for him. That's not my stick. I wanted it to be. I wanted to attach my name to somebody really cool that was going to go play maybe pro somewhere. That wasn't my thing. My thing is dealing with these little kids. My real thing is is working with Special Olympics kids. That's even better, but that's a whole other topic. But that I found out that my little niche, and that's where I kind of stayed inside of. So find your superpower, that little grabber thing, and stay in there. Hone your definition of your target customer demographics. I chased every school that I could chase, and some of them just didn't have the right demographics. They couldn't afford what we were going to do. And some we went in because I wanted to get in there so bad, offered them scholarships. And we were in there longer than we needed to be, and we were losing money in some schools. So as much as I wanted to be every place, I couldn't be. Just the money wouldn't allow me to do that. Switch to a more attractive and lucrative business model. That's what I did when I switched from being. It took me a couple of years, but I was able to get back to where I was when I was at the country club. But it did take that. And you're only as good as your last lesson. There's no salary in that. That salary is nice at the country club. There's insurance and benefits. That's nice at the country club, but I was not happy. And you got to end up being happy there. Change your competitive positioning, and then use technology platforms for solution. I did that with the website there. And then adapt to emerging customer need or pain. I was solving the problem for the parents and being able to take care of them. All right, so I'm going to show you a little bit about personal pivot here. And this is a great little quote. The difference between school and life. In school, we're taught a lesson, given a test, and in life, you're given a test that teaches you a lesson. I think this Tom Modest's the one that has Motel 6 commercials. I'm not quite sure. I think that's the same guy there. But anyway, when you need to do a personal pivot, and all these things right here, that's what was happening in my life at the time with the country club. Waking up to go to work is a big chore. You know, some days you're just tired. I get that. But if it feels like it's every single day, you need to make that pivot in your life. Spending more time working on your side project. I was working on, at the time, X-Point. Remember Mark McMahon was doing X-Point Sports? I did that with him for a little bit while I was trying to run the country club. And so I was thinking about that more than I was the country club. But I pivoted out of that too. You spend more time on the side hustle. You're watching the clock all day long. You have trouble sleeping. That's always been my guide. If I can't sleep at night, then I've got stuff that I got to deal with. And I sleep pretty well most of the time. But if I can't sleep at night, I know that change needs to happen right there, because that's my major thing. You're short with the people that you love. And that's a major thing, because you're not happy in one little piece of your life. You need a little pivot. You're there. You're not satisfied professionally. And you're simply doing it for the money. Again, getting that nice paycheck on Friday was good. I was super happy to do that, but I definitely needed a change. So pivots happen all the time. This is what it felt like when we first started out, trying to take control of things. But what I will take from here is that to be bold, to take some risk. You're not guaranteed tomorrow at all. No one is. I went to a really good faith and formation meeting this morning that Jeff Hollis was running, and it made this talk even more important for me, because we all go through some struggles in life, and we all go through things that they really suck sometimes, and we're not. We thought we wanted this job that we had to go for, and then we're glad that we didn't get it. Or there's things in business that are going on that we really need to get through. But taking that step forward and just accepting what's going on right now and moving through it, and then finding different ways that you can stay in there. Tennis has always been what I wanted to do. I could change and go do something else. I'm sure that I could sell, XYZ or cars or whatever. I'm sure I could do that. I wouldn't be happy. It's not what I want to do. But I know that it's tennis, and I'll probably switch again. And I'm already switching again. I'm starting to look into tournament software and stuff, and doing other things. But it's always back to the tennis in there that we try to do. But being bold and not being okay with always being comfortable. You got to get out of your comfort zone sometimes and take those. So that's my takeaways for the day. If you want to talk to me, I'm here all weekend, or you can get a hold of me at either one of these. That's my cell phone. I always pick up. I'm usually awake. I don't sleep that much. I went to bed this morning at 2, got up at 5, so I don't sleep a whole lot. So if you want to call me and talk, if you're in the middle of a pivot or need a pivot, or I can share about how things were changed for me, I'm happy to do that. But I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kevin Theos, and I'm excited to make a presentation about Rocket Tennis, which is a program that I created. It actually has evolved into a family tennis program. To start out, actually showing a video, give you an idea of what it's about. Okay, I'd like to thank Jenny Robb, actually. Jenny Robb put that video together, and she did a terrific job. As you can see, that it was from multiple sites. And how many of you have had the opportunity when you were very, very young to play tennis with family members? Anybody here? Okay, how many of you have had the chance to play with your own kids or your own families as adults? Okay, now how many of you offer family tennis programs for, say, the entry level? Okay, a couple of you do. Okay, and that's terrific. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the value of family tennis in terms of getting players in and really what it can do for you and for the families that get involved. I don't believe that there's not one right way to approach family tennis. But I can share, or will share, some observations from the Rocket Tennis program that evolved into family tennis, and maybe you can take some of those away to your clubs and use some of those ideas. So Rocket Tennis developed a few years ago. There was an effort from the USPTA to get more kids 10 and under. There was a grant, actually, to get kids 10 and under playing tennis. And we were toward the end of that grant, and we were deciding what to do in the last few months. I had some concerns with the way that USTA Junior Team Tennis operated. There were some challenges. And I thought, well, why don't we try something a little bit different? And that's what we did. So first thing was we wanted no travel for entry-level players. They would all play at the same facility each week for 6 weeks. Okay? It's just like when my daughter started playing soccer. She was an entry-level soccer player. We went to the same park every week. There was no reason to be driving all over the place to try soccer. Also wanted it to be gender neutral. As some of you know, we have in the past run into problems. Either there were too many boys or not enough boys or not enough girls. We wanted the boys and the girls to be able to play against each other. We formed teams very quickly. The kids were actually competing starting the second week, so they enjoyed being on teams right away. And we also wanted 2 courts to be enough. We would set up from fence to fence. As you all know, you could set up 6 mini courts on 1 regular tennis court or 12 mini courts on 2 courts. So that would accommodate 24 singles players. A lot of our junior team tennis programs, I mean, it's terrific that we have large facilities that can accommodate many teams, but they have many courts, but there are a lot of parks with only 2 tennis courts, and we wanted something that could work in a smaller area. Also, we wanted to allow for kids who were 8 and under, or rather over 8 years old, to play on smaller courts. Entry level, why not start out on smaller courts? They don't have to go to a 60-foot court or a 78-foot court just because they're older than 8 years old. And we wanted the parents to be involved as well. Initially, we had the parents help out on court with group management, and then the very last week, we allowed them to play the last 15 minutes with their kids. And they had really a terrific time by playing with their kids. It was a very different experience. It was wonderful to have them out there helping out, but when they were actually able to experience it with their kids, it was entirely different. Now, from subsequent programs, we started to get the parents more and more involved, playing with their kids, not just the last 15 minutes in the last class, but throughout the program and helping their kids develop their skills. And so that's kind of where it's really turned into family tennis. All right, so here are some takeaways from what we've learned over the last few years of running these programs throughout Alabama. The adaptive equipment and the smaller courts really matter. And they matter for a few reasons. The first thing is that the kids get a lot of reps by being able to play on a small court. There's no standing in line, so all of the kids are able to compete or play the entire time. So they're able to get lots of reps because of that. They're also able to get lots of reps because we're not standing in line, and then they're active the whole time because the size of the court creates the amount of time that they're rallying. So an example is my wife and I, family, we were on vacation, and I know some people are more fans of pickleball than others, but we had the chance to observe pickleball, and it was really terrific. And some of you may have had this experience where you would be on the backside of a tennis court and actually be able to observe one court where they're playing tennis, and the second court where they're playing pickleball. And you could compare them side by side. And for me, and I didn't have a lot of experience with pickleball, and it's nothing, not necessarily, promoting pickleball, but just an observation. The players were warming up to play doubles, tennis doubles on one court, and on the other court they're playing pickleball. During the time it took the ball to travel 78 feet on the tennis court, the pickleball players were able to actually get a rally going, and they had the ball go back and forth multiple times. So the sheer number of reps that they were getting during the period of one tennis rep, it was just a lot more. And by playing on smaller courts, the kids are able to get a lot more reps. The third factor is that by playing with their parents, they get more quality reps. Pairing them off, kids with each other, that works out very, very well. It's better than standing in line. But when they're playing with their parents, the parents are, we hope, more coordinated than the kids in the program. And so the ball keeps coming back, and they're getting a lot of quality reps. All of this is indicative of the value of playing on smaller tennis courts. Second factor is the parents perceive their own competence. I've had, and I'm sure many of you have had adults say that they have no talent in tennis, maybe they have tried it before, and they hit the ball over the fence. They used to be baseball or softball players, and as soon as they start playing on smaller courts with their kids, they start to perceive that they themselves have some competence in tennis where they didn't perceive that before. And it starts to build up their confidence, and it's very, very helpful. Kids want to compete against their parents on the smaller courts. We've discovered that after even a couple of weeks of the kids getting reps, they start wanting to play games against their parents and see if they can make mom and dad run around a little bit. You saw that in the video. I would say that if you take anything else away today, if you're going to get parents and kids playing together, I highly, highly recommend using smaller courts because they have that confidence right away. I have taught lessons. I've had, for me, just speaking for myself, if I would get a call or a parent would ask if I could run a family sort of tennis clinic or a private lesson, semi-private, where they have a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old, a 14-year-old, and mom and dad. Oh, it was not something that I really, liked very much. It's just a challenging thing, particularly on the larger courts. All right, well, let's talk a little bit about money. So, it's not just, it is about the families, but then it's also about helping your programs. When we set up the 12 mini courts, like I said, we could accommodate 24 singles players. When we allow players to play doubles, we can accommodate more than that. One particular program, we allowed, there were some siblings that wanted in, so instead of 24, we allowed 25 in for an hour lesson, okay? And we actually, it was 4 lessons, okay? And one was from 6 to 7 p.m., and then there was another group from 7 to 8. Each one had 25 players, so we ended up with 50 juniors, and then the parents were playing in as well. We charged them $29 for that, for the 4 times, which is lower than the normal going rate for a group lesson. Basically made $1,450 off of that 8 hours of instruction. So we could have charged more. Actually, the program filled very, very quickly. So the suggestion after that was that we had priced it a little bit too low. But my point is that because you can accommodate so many players, you can make quite a bit of money off of the program, maybe more than you make off of a traditional tennis clinic. Now, there's a practical reality from the standpoint of getting parents to actually play, that if you charge your normal rate for a group lesson and then you ask parents to come out and assist, the perception is that you are asking for free labor, right? I mean, you want them to, they're kind of doing your work for you. The positioning is very different, though. If you charge less than your normal rate for your group lesson, and then you promote it as an opportunity, you're not charging the parents, so there's no charge to the parent. Free play with your kids. It costs less than the normal clinic. And you get the chance to play with your children. The positioning in the minds of the parents, at least in my experience, is very different than if you were to just charge your normal rate and then ask them to come out and help. And they're very, very willing to do that. one of the advantages of having the parents out there is that the parents learn progressions with their kids. They learn how to bump a ball over that, some things that they can do themselves. I'm sure many of you have had the opportunity to go out to public courts, and maybe you're playing on one court and you notice on the next court some people, family comes out, and maybe it's during the US Open or Wimbledon, and they see, you think, well, maybe they've seen tennis on television and they're excited, and then they can't rally, and then after a couple minutes they start getting kind of snippy with each other, and then maybe a little while later they give up on it. Well, by giving them some progression, some things that they can work on within the context of a clinic, they learn how to actually work with their kids a little bit. And the way that they position the fun in it is seeing the progression of their kids and being able to rally. And I've had that opportunity of being on a separate court and really giving some low compression balls to players. And it's interesting, the threshold of success, the way that they view it, is not like most of us, or all of us in here, would probably not be very satisfied with a rally that only goes 3 or 4 shots. But for them, it's amazing. I have observed the difference between families hitting 2 balls back, maybe 3 if they're lucky, and then I give them low compression balls, and now they're hitting the ball back 4 times or 5. Their reaction, they're very satisfied with that, where we wouldn't be. So it makes a big difference by giving them that opportunity, and knowing some progressions helps. Many of us recall that back in the day when you could go to a public park and find partners. I mean, one of the things that our hope is to get people hooked on tennis, that they want to play all the time. And for me, I started playing tennis in a public park in Chicago. And I knew that there were old men and all kinds of players at those public parks, evenings and weekends. After school, I could just go out there. We don't have as many of those venues anymore. And so one of the challenges is that if we get kids into tennis and they're really excited about it, who are they going to play with outside of their clinics? Now, you may very well have opportunities in your programs for the kids to keep playing, but how much better is it if they have people in their own homes who play tennis, that they can just go out evenings and weekends and hit together? And by getting that repetition, they start to improve a lot more. In the programs that you saw there, I've asked parents, hey, how many of you had a chance to go out and hit with your kids? And most of them, from one clinic to the next, and many of them would say, yeah, we've gone out and hit. And as I'm sure many of you have seen, the difference between a player who goes out and takes a clinic and just shows up for that clinic once a week for however many weeks, and a player who's in that same clinic but is able to get just 1 additional hour every week, the difference is profound in terms of their skill development. So just helping them have someone in their own home who plays is very, very helpful. Family tennis doesn't have to be a permanent kind of program, in the sense that you're going to keep them in that program for an extended period of time. If you can just get them excited about playing together, excited about tennis, very quickly you can transition them into your traditional tennis clinics. Where we started out racket tennis with 6 lessons, now it's down to 4. And then after those 4 lessons at facilities, players will transition into the normal clinics. Now, on the back end, sometimes you have kids who start taking lessons, and then their parents will sign up separately. But the prospects for that seem a lot less. But if you can get them actually playing together, that the parents are going to be a little bit more likely to play in a follow-up program. And family tennis, I've been talking about entry level. It doesn't have to just be for entry level. Ran a family tennis clinic for my daughter's middle school team, the parents and kids. And actually, we ran into a parent at the grocery store a week later, and she said that she had gone out and hit with her daughter after that. And so, these players are a little bit stronger, but they enjoyed playing tennis together as well. To finish, if you just consider what family tennis could mean to your members, you could consider what it means to your program, that you could actually maybe make more money than you're making on some of your group lessons and really get players hooked on tennis. I'm reminded, there's a quote from Arthur Ashe that from what we get, we can make a living. What we give, however, makes a life. This is one of those opportunities where you could make a little bit more money potentially, but then you're also making a difference in the lives of the people who are out there and getting them into tennis maybe for the rest of their lives. And I urge you to give it a try. Thank you.
Whitworth, your executive director, located not too far away from here, about 20 miles away. I'm glad to have everybody in what I'll consider a home. So for those that know me, I've been considered frugal, maybe even cheap. Surprisingly, I'll spend hundreds and even thousands of dollars on making trips to the world of Disney. I've spent quite a number of years studying Walt Disney, the company Disney, and the theme park business. I'm going to share some concepts and ideas with you that I think will really help our business that we do each day. The first thing, I think everybody should have a mission statement. I don't care if you're an independent pro or you're at a club, you ought to have a mission statement. Disney, this enormous company at their theme parks, create happy guests. 3 words, pretty amazing. Do you think their people can remember that? Create happy guests. I've seen mission statements that are 50 words and 100 words long. People are going to remember this. Disney's a company, $45 billion company. The theme parks do $17 billion a year. Create happy guests. They have 11 theme parks and they're in 3 or 4 different countries right now. So they're not all just in the U.S., but it's pretty simple to remember. Everybody ought to have something that'll make it pretty easy. The next thing that I really like that they do is reveals. So when you go start thinking about a trip to Disney World, you start seeing commercials, and we all see these commercials on television. Then you take a trip down the road and you start seeing all these bulletin boards. And you get closer, you see more and more of them. Then you get to the Disney property, and this is your entrance. You're like, yeah, we're there, this is awesome. Everybody's shaking, and we always take a selfie when we get to this point and try to turn it and face it over there. And they have signs here that says, do not stop and take pictures. So as you go through this, now we're going to get to the parking lot. And in the parking lot, it looks like this. And wow, what an entrance. I mean, you didn't just get to Macy's here. You're kind of like the Atlanta Athletic Club parking lot. So we get to the parking lot, you take a tram or up to the main area, then you've got to get on a ferry or you get on a monorail. You make your trip over to the main area that you're going to get into the park. You go through the ticket turnstiles, and now you're at the train station. And you're on each side of the train station, there's these tunnels. Now we're really getting excited. You walk through the tunnels, and this is the reveal that you see. You see Main Street and a 200-foot tall Cinderella castle. So, what can we do when people get out of their car, when they're coming to you, no matter where you're at? What are they starting to see that's going to reveal, that's going to unroll, that they're about to experience at your place? They walk down the hill. Started working with Billy over at the club. He's with us and taking over. And his thing is to have music all the time. So isn't that a great thing? Have music, kind of bring up the atmosphere, get people thinking about, we're going to have a good time now. And walk on the court. Do you have good equipment? Hopefully, that's part of your reveal. Everything we do, we want to be revealing that they're about to have a good time. We're going to have some fun. This is going to be a place that you want to be coming to. Next thing, I'm a Disney Vacation Club member, surprisingly. And when we make a trip there and we get to the hotel that we're going to stay at, and we get in the parking lot, they greet us with welcome home. We're like, yeah, you're home. You go and check in at the hotel and they greet you with welcome home. And you go spend a little bit more money someplace else and they tell you welcome home. But it does make you feel good. You're glad you're part of this. And I believe we want our people to feel when they come into our world, our tennis world, that we're welcoming them home. That we, hey, glad to have you here. This is your place. Be here with us. So we need to do whatever we can to make people feel welcome, as we always do, but put that extra on there. You can just, whatever you do, call people by their name, ask them about their kids, whatever it is. We want to welcome them home. Now, when you go into the theme parks in the morning, and Who all's been to Disney World before? Oh, very good. So if you're there in the morning, if you can actually get up in time and not be sleeping in until 11 o'clock, then as you walk in, the first thing of the day, they have all the employees out greeting you. They got Mickey hands on. They're waving at you. Hey, glad you're here. They don't necessarily say welcome home, but in this case, but it makes you, once again, it gets you energized, and we want to continue to do that. We want to energize people to be happy that they've come to see us. Sometimes people aren't real happy when they walk on the court. Hopefully they are when they leave from us. So, Disneyland put on a pretty big show for Michael Phelps after he won however many gold medals it was that he won. Now, we can't all plus our events the way that they did this. But anything that we're going to do, we need to try to plus it. So does anybody ever do like a throwback type of an event where they wear whites and they play with wooden rackets? And I mean, we've all done these things. Wouldn't it have been a neat idea to come up with some old-looking, they even call this a telegram. This has nothing to do, this was a wedding invitation. But the idea of, that's a plus. They let them know that this is what you're getting into, because this just looks like, you know, yes, it's throwback, and make everything, I wish it had a rusty staple in it at the top or something that would make it really feel like it's something old. So that would be a neat way to plus your event. Jeff does a margarita mixer that I just think is really cool, and he's plussed it by not just coming and playing tennis and having margaritas and Mexican food, but they do a tortilla chip toss into a big sombrero, and everybody's standing there trying to toss chips and land them in there. Get a jar of pinto beans, you have to guess how many are in there. The one that I would never want to do is you got to try to eat a box of tamales and see those little red beans and see who can eat them the fastest. That one scares me. But there's a way to plus just a simple event, add a little bit extra to it. Now here's 4 guiding principles that everybody that works at Disney in the theme park, this guides all their directions. So we have obviously efficiency, that would have to do with money. Courtesy, that's something that we all should be doing. We have safety, and we have the show. And obviously you're at Disney World, it is a show. So I want to see some hands from people if I can. Who thinks efficiency is the #1 most important of this list in the case of 1 to 4? Nobody. Disney makes $47 billion. Who thinks it's courtesy?
2.
Yeah, we got to be courteous some. Who thinks it's safety? Who thinks it's show? Put on a good show. In the Disney World, safety's #1. I would agree that that's probably in our case too. When somebody gets hurt on your courts, that's not a good day. Courtesy's #2. Show is #3. And efficiency's #4. Because they feel that the first 3 will help to drive the efficiency and make you more productive financially if you're covering the others. And for us, show would be, once again, how does your place look? What does your equipment look like? How are you dressed? That would all be part of the show. It doesn't matter if you're independent or if you are at a nice club. It's all part of that show. So, lessons from failure. Walt said that he felt everybody should have a hard fail early in their life. So he felt that that way you know that you can recover from it, and you're not just going to be crushed because you failed. Now, at age 22, he went bankrupt in his animation business that was in Kansas City. He got his imitation leather suitcase, threw some clothes in there. He didn't have a whole lot of clothes. Got on a train, took off for Los Angeles. He was going to get into the movie business. He was going to do a pivot. But then he pivoted back and got back into animation business and actually did pretty good over the years, I believe. So the idea is all the adversity I've had in my life, all my troubles and obstacles have strengthened me. You may not realize it when it happens, but a kick in the teeth may be the best thing in the world for you. That's a great quote. I love that. How about training? We all train. We either train people as we're coaching them, or if you train other people and other staff. This is a Disney training session that's called Traditions. This looks pretty cool, doesn't it? And these people are going to remember more of what they're going through than if you're just sitting in a classroom, sorry, like you are, and just learning and going through it. So they find a way to make it fun, to make it interactive, to do kind of goofy things, and that really helps people to retain what they're trying for them to learn. And once again, they call it traditions. They've been doing it for years. It's morphed around. They don't have as long of a program as they used to have, but it still is a very effective program, and they're studied all over the world from other businesses to learn how they do this and how they do it so well. So, who are we? Who's that song by?
The Who.
The Who. That's right. Good job. This is the crowd. But at Disney, you're the audience. People that work here are called employees. But at Disney, you're called a cast member. Because you're putting on a show. And it can be a bad show and it can be a good show. Hopefully it's a good show. Right now, we're on stage. We're in an area that's out in front of people. There's areas that you can go through doors and you're backstage. Obviously, you've got to dress different, you've got to talk different, you've got to be different if you're on stage than if you're off stage. It all makes sense. So, the way that you can talk to people. What about the items that people are wearing here? I know that, I see Carmen in the back, that y'all have a certain shirt you wear every day. It's got to be a certain color. That's their uniform. Right? At Disney, that's their costumes. So if we're part of the show, we're part of the whole experience, then it's not a uniform, it's a costume. So, here's the last few lessons. First, do what you love. We're pretty fortunate. We do what we love. We don't have to preach too much on that. We're all very fortunate to have done that. Do what you do seriously. We make such an impact on both children and adults. You know there's a lot of people that come to our courts to see us, and how often, I'll even take a raise of hands, has somebody come to do a lesson and basically sit and talk to you the whole time? Yeah, so I bet everybody. So we make an impact physically, mentally, spiritually. We make an impact on people, so we have to be very serious about what we do. I bet Coach Bradshaw was pretty serious about what he did, even though he had fun with it. Do it for others. Well, a lot of us do that. Help with the charities that we do. Share your vision of what you're doing with others. We are such a help that we have to make sure it's not just about us. Todd referred to that earlier. If you're only doing it just to make money, you're doing it for yourself. You're not really reaching out from your bubble there. Never just settle with your first success. So Walt had moved from Kansas City, and he moved to California. He's in the Anaheim area. Things were going good. He made the first talking animation. That was amazing. Mickey Mouse was talking. Then he did the Alice comedies where you put live and animation together. That was the first time that was done. And things were just going great. But his animation and cartoons were always put in front of a major movie. Well, he came up with the idea, he says, I want to be the major movie. Well, this was called Walt's Folly by everybody. Everybody out in Hollywood said, this guy's stupid. This is the craziest thing we've ever heard of. So he came out with Snow White. He was going to be the major attraction, and of course it was a huge hit. It just put the studio way up. So that pushed him forward. He could have settled. He never settled. Whenever he did something once, he didn't want to ever do it again. He said, I've already done it. When he built his theme park out in California, then they wanted to build one in Florida. He says, I don't want to build another theme park. I've already done it. But he wanted to build Epcot, which was the experimental prototypical community of tomorrow. He wanted to find a new way to build a community. And last, don't let obstacles stop you. We know they're going to come up there. He had plenty of them. He had money obstacles all the time. They would find a way somehow. They mortgage something. You just have, as we know, we have to keep pushing through. We've all had tough times. Once again, we heard Todd say it earlier, you got to pivot. If something hits you, pivot, go to the side. So from my recent trip in California, I met one of my friends. And this was at...
Are you went to California this year?
Not this year.
Okay.
That was from the World Conference.
Okay. Okay.
So I've learned from Walt that we have to seek joy in learning and working and succeeding, and even when you fail. So yes, I'm that frugal guy that doesn't like to spend money, but I'll find the time and the resources to make my trips to that world of Disney. Now we have to make sure when people come to see us, they feel that same way because they're spending their time with us. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Pat.
You betcha.
Okay, folks. First of all, my name's Dave Dvorak, and I'm the director of tennis at Dunaway Country Club, which is not too far from here. And I want to thank you all for hanging in here with us. I'm bringing you home. This is the last 15 minutes, so I appreciate everybody being so attentive. I've been doing this for a long time, and I don't even want to tell you how long I've been doing this. But when I was a young tennis professional, I worked at a very big facility in Michigan. It had 14 indoor courts. And as the new member of the staff, the rookie on the staff, the low man on the totem pole, if you will, I was given the privilege of running the Friday night mixer every Friday night from September through May. Yay. I really wanted to be doing that as a young tennis professional. Well, my social life at that time consisted of all the people that I was working with on those Friday nights. And I got to know, and I would make the best of it. And actually, looking back on it, I would say this, it was one of the best things that happened. I learned a ton. But Friday nights were taken away, and so I became friends with the staff, and one member in particular, our towel boy, became real good friends with him. He was a college tennis player, and he was working there at our club to make a little extra money. And so we decided at the end of the night we would go hit some tennis balls, and we would play tennis. And we were pretty equal and pretty competitive, and so we started out and had a lot of fun, and we'd look forward to our Friday night match. The downside of that Friday night match was that I would start my Fridays at that club in the indoor business. You do this a lot, at 7 o'clock in the morning with my lessons. So we were starting our matches at 11 o'clock at night. And usually one of us, and I won't say which one, was kind of cranky and ornery by that time, and maybe not displaying the best sportsmanship. And so it got to be a little bit more work than it was fun. And so we decided, the two of us, that we needed to have some sort of incentive that would change our attitudes about playing, because we wanted to play. And so we decided we're going to play for a new pair of socks. The loser had to buy the winner a new pair of socks. And so that worked. And it changed our attitudes of what we were and how competitive we were. And the next day we'd go into the pro shop, buy a new pair of socks. And after a while we had plenty of socks. And so we just started to have a tally. And we really had fun with that. I was at that club for 5 years, and my friend stayed at the club, graduated from college, went on to be one of the teaching professionals at that club. And I moved away, came to the South. And he had Crohn's disease, which is a brutal thing, and through that he contracted leukemia. And because of that he had to have a bone marrow transplant. Well, one of those is just brutal, but all three of the things that were really brutal. And so we certainly stayed in touch, and I followed his progression. I go see him in the hospital, and he lost at least 1.5 years of his life in the hospital. But things started to go better for him. And when he called me, and I was out in the middle of nowhere one time, and he called me on my cell phone, and he called and said, "Hey, I just want to let you know, things aren't going so well. And the doctors have told me, you got to put your affairs in order." And I'm going, "Well, that doesn't sound good. Got to put your affairs in order. What does that mean?" "Well, it means they can't do anything for me anymore, and, my body's rejecting all the drugs, it's rejecting everything with the transplant. It's just not looking good." And so we talked for a little bit, and we reminisced for a little bit, and through the course of that, he was discouraged, and he was tired, and he was defeated. And so we were talking about our days of playing tennis and the new pair of socks. And all of a sudden, I said, "Well, you know what you need is, you need that new pair of socks that will change your attitude. And I hung up the phone and I thought, that's got to be the most lame advice anybody could give somebody. Called me the next day and said, I got a pair of white athletic socks hanging on my wall in the hospital room here, and the nurses don't understand why, and I'm not telling them, but he said, when I get better, I'm going to see you, and you're paying for them. And I went, great. Now, he did. He defied the doctors. He's here with us today, and he's doing well. Did the socks save his life? No. Did the socks change his life? Yeah, to a degree. Okay? Because it changed his attitude. And it gave him a purpose at that moment in time. And that's the word I want you to remember right now. Purpose. Okay? But it's about the attitude. As tennis professionals, we give advice all day long, and we give some interesting advice, we give some solid advice. And some of the advice that I have given over the years, or one bit of advice that I give, and I still give it to my students is, and this is particularly true for them in the summertime. In your tennis bag, you are to carry a new pair of socks, or at the very least, a clean pair of socks. When you split sets, you put those socks on. Now, what does that do for you? It helps you, it gives you a different view about what's going to be happening in the next few minutes or in the next half hour or so as you play that third set. It changes your attitude a little bit. You have a vision as a tennis player of what's going to happen in that third set. You know what the outcome is, what you want it to be. But you're on a mission at that moment in time. And this helps you with your attitude towards that mission of playing in the heat, maybe playing a long, protracted third set, whatever it may be. It helps. I've had more students come back and go, you know, that really works. It made me feel better. It gave me a little bounce on my step. Well, that's kind of the point of it, but that's not really the point of it. The point of it is it helps you with your attitude going into that third set. But it helps you with your mission. Okay, so I want you to remember the word purpose. I want you to remember the word mission. And we talked just briefly about vision because that's where the outcome that you were hoping to have. As tennis pros, we have three things that, we have a lot of different things that we can do and do well. Trying to pursue a new job or maybe improve the job we're on really starts with changing your attitude. The socks are kind of a metaphor for that. Okay? And the real trick is to come up with the formula for what that will be for you to change your attitude on some of these things or prepare you for the next step. And so the three words that I want to talk with you about today are your purpose, your vision, and your mission. And I appreciate Pat talking about the mission statement because that's really what this is. Your purpose is who you are and why you're here. And you're thinking right now, oh my gosh, this is going to be philosophical, it's going to be abstract. No, when you discover what your purpose is, it's concrete, it's clear. You'll know. It takes work to figure this out. And I can't tell you how you're going to do it exactly, but you have to sit down and make the effort to do it. But when you discover your purpose, whether it's in life or it's just for your occupation, it helps you change your attitude. It helps you then set a course for finding and casting your vision for yourself. And that's what your vision is, what you want to accomplish. Where you want to be, where you want to do it. The mission is how you're going to accomplish that vision. It's your game plan. I've worked with a lot of different pros, and I'm going to give you an example of two pros that I worked with that had this, that figured this out. Basically, to me, your purpose, your vision, your mission are like the new pair of socks. When you put them on, it changes your attitude. It changes everything about the way you operate and the way you deal with circumstances that come your way in life. One tennis professional came to us, and during the interview process, he said, this is what I should be doing. He was very clear. This is what I do. This is what I should be doing. And he explained why. And he said, and this is where I want to be someday. This is where I want to go. This is the place that I want. This is what I want to accomplish. So he had his purpose and he had his vision, but he didn't have his mission. He couldn't figure that out yet. So he was with us for 6 years, and he did really well, and he was popular, and he made a lot of money. And in the course of that time, he figured out his mission. And he left us, and he pursued his vision, his dream, and he started at rock bottom. He left a very successful position where he made a lot of money and started from scratch making no money. But he knew where he wanted to do it, he knew who he wanted to do it with, and he knew what he wanted to do. And his business has been successful. It has changed a little bit, but he has been very successful, and he's as happy as can be because he's pursuing and has pursued his dream. I had another tennis pro that worked with us, and he was good. He was successful at our club. And he came in and he talked to me and he said, I'm unhappy. And I'm unhappy because I want to be here, and I don't seem to be able to get there. And maybe this isn't the right place for me. So now he's questioning his purpose. And we talked about it a little bit, and I said, well, that's, for me it was disappointing because I thought that's where he belonged, but we decided he needed to take a little time, and so he took a long weekend. And when he came back, he came to me and said, okay, I want to talk to you again. And I said, great. And he said, this is where I belong. Okay? This is what I should be doing. And he knew what he was about at that moment. I don't know what he did on the long weekend. I got a little bit of an inkling, but he came back a different person. And he understood his purpose. And he said, this is where I want to go. And this is what I want to do. And I want this position. I want to be able to do this. And he said, this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this, and this, and I'm going to improve this. And I went, holy cow. This is fantastic. And it worked. He went from being on our staff, and when the first position that came open for him to pursue, where he wanted to, which was part of his vision, he went in and he sold himself on that with the decision makers because he was so clear as to what he was about and where he was going. He understood his purpose.
Did both of them stay in tennis?
No.
No.
One moved out. Not too far. They're both back in town. The same pro, the job changed for him in the middle of this. Management changed. Ownership changed. It got really difficult. And once again, he started contemplating, do I get out? Do I leave? Maybe this isn't the right place for me. And through a couple of conversations, and I knew what he was capable of, he did it again. He sat down and he said, okay, here's what I'm going to do. This is where I belong. This is what I should be doing. And I have another vision. I have an ultimate vision of where I want to be. And so he changed, and he changed his attitude. And at the same time, management seemed to change, and ownership seemed to change. It's amazing how that all seems to work when your attitude changes. But his ultimate dream job became open. And he pursued that. And he had his purpose, and he had his vision of pursuing that job, and he had his mission and how he was going to do it. And he did it. And he got that job. And he was so clear about how he was going to do it. It was fun to talk to him about that kind of stuff. I talked to the GM of that club that hired him afterwards, and the GM said, we had excellent candidates. Everybody was good. We were really happy with all of them. But this guy knocked it out of the park. And that's why he's in that position he's in today. Okay? Bottom line is, we tell people all the time, as tennis professionals, they walk out on the court, and you say, okay, I'm going to work with you on your forehand. You're giving them your purpose right there, okay? And you tell them, this is where I think how much you can improve and where you can be. There's your vision. And then you say, here's how we're going to do it, and we're going to go through these steps. And there's the mission, okay? But we rarely do it for ourselves. So I like to talk to tennis pros, and I like to hear from them, and I talk to a lot of them. And before even putting this presentation together, and I ask them all the time, what's your dream job look like? And I get this answer. Well, I'd like to make a lot of money. And there's a bunch of things. You hear people thinking through it, thinking out loud. And so after talking with them a little bit about that, I go, well, so what's your purpose? And they go, now there's a good question. There's a really good question. Okay? And so I think we do ourselves a little bit of a disservice because we always do the same sort of thing for other people, but we're not doing it for ourselves. One of the groups of people that I really enjoy listening to are coaches from other sports. I love listening to them. I like studying them. I like hearing from them. I like learning from them. And one of the things that I've observed, totally unscientific, but one of the things that I've observed is the coaches that have been very clear in their lives about who they are and what they want to do and how they're going to get there are still coaching today, and generally in the same position. The coaches that seem to have pursued something because they wanted that position and have maybe grown into the job or were learning on the job are the people that have jumped from place to place to place. And maybe eventually they slow down and they get to a place, but they weren't always clear about what they were doing. Very, very clearly, I'm just going to say this and then we're done here for today, but I'm going to leave you with a quote and a challenge. The quote's from Friedrich Nietzsche, who said, and I'm going to make sure I got this right because I don't want to screw it up, but to forget one's purpose is the commonest form of stupidity. Holy cow, that's harsh. That's really harsh when you think about it. What's scarier is that he's assuming we all understand our purpose. And if you don't, then that's a double push. Okay? The title of this presentation was, if you want to find your dream job, you've got to find a new pair of socks. The socks are basically the metaphor for changing your attitude, and this is the formula that I believe, and I'm going to suggest to you as a way to do it. So my challenge for you today is to sit down, put in your calendar a time when you can evaluate and think about, okay, I'm going to focus this much time on what am I good at? What do I do? Why do people want to see me? What tendencies do I solve? You ask yourself a bunch of questions. I don't have all the questions for you. Everybody's going to come up with it differently. But when you can come up with when you can discover your purpose, that's going to lead you to forming your vision. And it might be that your vision will be for your current job. It might be for another job. Could be, as I said before, something about being a better spouse. It could be being a better parent. It could be all kinds of things. You can apply this to lots of different places. We do it at our club for our tennis program. We have our purpose, our mission, and our vision. That's why none of our staff are here now, because they get tired of hearing about it and talking about it. But I would challenge you to figure it out, to discover it, write it down, write down your purpose, write down your vision, and write down your mission, and memorize it. And know it cold, because it's going to serve you well. And if you're having trouble trying to even get started with that, go buy yourself a new pair of socks and put them on, and maybe that'll help you change your attitude. I'm done. Thank you very much.